Welcome to the State of the Program on Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton and Rod Babers. This episode brought to you by Lowy Law Firm. Guys, what I want to talk about today is really simple. Grading the personnel department at the University of Texas. How did they do in the portal versus all of the needs they had this offseason and some things that transpired during the portal cycle with a couple of big transfers here or there, like Trey Wisner, et cetera. Let's start this and go down the list of needs they had at each position. At quarterback, they wanted an emergency quarterback. At running back, they wanted firepower and an ability to have a big back that runs inside. At wide receiver, firepower, big-time playmaker. Tight end, they needed an inline blocker to go with a Nick Townsend and Amari Winston. Offensive line, they wanted starters in depth. Defensive line, we talked about it. They wanted a big-time interior guy to help out. Defensive end, they wanted a pass rusher, linebacker, and this is all from the list that we had preseason or going into the portal. They wanted a playmaker and they wanted depth. At defensive back, they needed versatility and proven talent, and then they needed specialists across the board. In all, what I just named, and I went through a list, that's 15 different things. Brandon Harris, Chris Gilbert, John Michael Jones, Josh Allen, all those guys, Steve Sarkisian, all those guys had to cross off their list and go get. Let's talk about whether or not they did it. I'll start with third-team quarterback MJ Morris. Emergency QB, do you think we took that off in that scenario, Jerry? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, he's got enough major college experience at NC State, then at Coastal Carolina. So he's got the experience they want. He's not have a ton of starts under his belt, but they didn't want somebody that was coming in thinking that the number 2 job was theirs. I think KJ Lacey's going to be the number 2 quarterback. I think MJ Morris gives them a good emergency quarterback to where they can preserve the redshirt of Diabell, which I think was the goal of this.
So it wasn't a priority. It wasn't like this big overhanging priority that they bring in a emergency quarterback, but they wanted 4.
Yeah,
and I think they accomplished that. Yeah. Running back, this was a big one for me because we talked about the lack of big plays at running back this past season. And then they go out and they lose Trey Wisner early. Cedric Baxter transfers. You knew they wanted to upgrade the firepower in the room, but they also wanted a bigger back that they've been missing, really. It felt like, to me, Rod, they got one of those 2 things accomplished in this portal. With Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, they got the playmakers and the firepower. They may not have gotten the bigger back that can run between the tackles. You agree with that?
I totally agree with you. They wanted someone who could add the power element in the run game, the inside zone concept, some of your power gap schemes, and certainly Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown may be able to do that, but you wanted a running back that really can provide that power element. That didn't happen, but you did provide explosivity and bring back to the offense now with Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. The only backfield that I can find, and I've done the research, and I know the transfer portal is still something that is ongoing. It's closed, but you can still pick up guys out of the transfer portal. Right now, the only backfield in the country that has a duo, 2 backs with at least 600 yards after contact last season, at least 48 missed tackles forced, and at least 9 or more 20-plus yard runs on the season. So they definitely right now may present the most explosive backfield in the country. That's what they were aiming for.
Yeah, well, they did it. The big back is the question mark. Maybe it's Derek Cooper, and he comes in. Maybe James Simon plays that role. He's returning. So the hope there is they may have gotten it, but from a goal perspective, you'd say they accomplished one of the 2 things they definitely wanted to do. Jaden Baugh didn't come available, right? Isaac Brown didn't come available. So those are things. At wide receiver, they wanted a big-time playmaker to join Ryan Wingo, take some of a burden off of him of being the sole playmaker, really, to be fair, and Emmett Mosley as well returning. Obviously got one of the top players in the portal overall, Cam Coleman. This wasn't just we checked the box. It's a check plus, right? I mean, you did more than just enter the fray and get a guy. You got a stud. Jerry?
There aren't many guys in the portal that when they come in, they say, okay, it's going to take 2 defenders against them. And that's what's going to happen with Cam Coleman. He's got to have safety help over the top. So even more than his individual talent, which is immense, which should be a first-round pick in the 27 NFL draft, it's what he does for the rest of the team and the rest of the offense. He makes the offense better even when he's just running a go route, because people are scared to death if he gets behind you and you get the ball to him at 7 or a huge play. So that requires safety help over the top. Texas absolutely hit that one out of the park. And I'll say this, I've been joking about it, but I'm joking and I'm serious. I'm excited for Cam Coleman because he's been waiting on deep balls for the last 2 years of college football. He actually has a chance to run under one now at Texas.
All right. Tight end, Rod B. Michael Masunas out of Michigan State is the guy that they kind of circled and said, we want to go get him. Not a big pass catcher. I think he had 19 catches a year ago, but is graded as one of the better run blockers in college football at the tight end position.
Yep.
How important is that when you know they have two guys in Nick Townsend and Amari Winston that they really like as pass catchers? And this, what Sark likes to do a lot of times, is 12 personnel. In my opinion, they didn't just do well here. They did about as well as you could from an inline blocking perspective. You think they answered that bell, and what does that do for Texas next year?
I think ultimately what Sark wants is a tight end that can be a plus blocker in the run game on that outside zone concept. And that's their money maker. That's their bread and butter run concept. And when they're talking about the split flow in the backfield with that tight end or that, obviously, that H, however you want to call it, or they're talking about you being able to set that outside edge. He's a guy, Michael Masunas, that is a physical presence. So sometimes we talk about the physical presence in the run game and having that as a running back. Sometimes it can be, members of your offensive line or a tight end that can be a mauler in the run game. So I think for Texas, they hit it out of the park with this one because, a lot of your tight ends so far, they have been really good guys, really good features in the passing game. You haven't had a lot of, I think a physical presence and a lot of tight ends that have been able to maul guys in the run game. And Michael Masunas is going to be able to do that for you and set that edge for you on the outside.
At offensive line, guys, Texas, we thought going into it, needed 2 to 3 with a couple of starters, starter level players, right? Then Nick Brooks went in. So the facts changed because Nick Brooks, highly thought of as a talent, at least at Texas right now behind the scenes. He transfers to Alabama, goes in the portal. So the numbers changed. It went from 2 to 3 offensive linemen to 3 to 4. It looked like they were going to be left holding the bag until yesterday a little bit, right? Where they would only get 3 and only one of them was really starter level guy and Melvin Siani out of Wake Forest. Now they add Lawrence Seymour, an offensive guard out of Western Kentucky, who has more than 1,000 snaps in his career, second team All-American by one publication. How did they answer the bell in this one? And let's assume that Seymour does get the A-OK. Jerry, I want to get both of y'all's answers on this one because it's been very divisive, the answers that people have given. Jerry, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they've gotten more athletic on their offensive line. I think Siani's a good athlete at offensive tackle, and if that means Baker moves the guard, that's a more athletic guard than you played at times last year. And I think Lawrence Seymour, assuming he does get his waiver, I think he is a athletic kid. He's got really good feet out of Miami Central, saw him in high school, bit undersized height-wise, but he's got good feet. He's got good athleticism. And you put that with Trevor Gooseby, and suddenly you have a little bit more athleticism on your offensive line. So that outside zone, some of those things Rod talks about, I think are going to be look a little more athletic and cleaner against SEC competition. Now, what does that do in terms of the run game? I just think, and these guys playing together, I think it's to be determined. There's no way to know how it's all going to come together because the offensive line meshing as a unit is maybe the most important thing on a football team outside of quarterback. So there's just no way to know. And by the way, I think Dylan Sorkowski was 6 starts last year at Oregon State and graded out pretty well in those starts. I think maybe, because we all get greedy in the portal, we underestimate what a young offensive lineman, a jump that guy can make from first-year starter to second year. I expect him to provide competition there. I think, look, the Nick Brooks loss hurt from a depth perspective, but I think Texas has got two potential starters out of it, one for sure in Siani and either Seymour or Sirkowski. I think they got two starters out of the portal, but I also don't want to discount a young kid like Jordan Coleman, who doesn't mean anything when you haven't seen the film. Look how Trevor Gooseby turned out, or when you haven't seen the field. Look how Trevor Gooseby turned out once he got his opportunity. But I think Texas got two starters out of the portal more than likely, and I think they got enough experience depth to where that can help them work to maximize the season as long as everybody meshes. That's the whole thing, that is the unknown till it's a known.
So you're saying it's a check mark, is what I'm hearing, Jerry. You think they answered the call? What about you, Rod? You think they answered the bell with this group? If Seymour gets his waiver,
I think Jerry's right. I think they had clear goals about how they wanted to reconstruct his offensive line. And Jerry talked about athleticism being one of them. I think experience is also another big part of it. They wanted guys who had played a lot of football. You go look at it now among that group. You got over, the expected starters you brought in, and with Texas players already, you're talking about over 6,000 snaps played between those guys. Last year, you were probably right under 3,000 snaps with the right over, I should say maybe 3,700 snaps with those guys who had played the collection of O-linemen you had last year. So you just, you got a lot more experience on the offensive line. I think that's a big part of it. Also, these guys excel as pass protectors. And last year, you were one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in college football. And you have Arch Manning, who a lot of people are projecting could end up being the number one overall pick, certainly going to be a first-round pick at the quarterback position. And you need to be able to protect him. And I think that's what these guys all have. They all have as elite traits as pass blockers. Run blocking, I agree with Jerry. I'm not sure if you're going to have you have maulers on this O-line, if you're going to have a elite run blocking group, but I think you'll be much improved in pass protection. I think it's actually going to be an asset for Texas, looking at the offensive line now, the way it's being reconstructed with the projected starters.
I'm just going through this. We named 7 things they wanted on offense. They got 6 of them. They wanted starters in depth at offensive line. They got that. The only thing they missed maybe was the bigger back. So 6 of 7 is pretty good.
Yeah.
And when it's a nuanced element, that is that 7th one that you missed. I think that's a fair game. Before we go to the defense, I want to say thank you to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, or automobile accident of any kind, make sure you reach out to Adam and his firm, LowyLawFirm.com. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you might be due compensation. Adam supports Texas athletics and on Texas football, helping us bring you shows like today's State of the Program. Thank you very much, Adam, for all you do. All right, let's go to defense, guys. Let's start on the interior. Texas really circled one guy early that not many people had heard of before, but Ian Giffard, big, huge guy, 6'6", 350 type guy out of Arkansas as an interior nose. They got him. They also added Zion Williams as a depth piece, but that big interior guy, Jerry, they got what they wanted, right?
Yeah, I think he's 350 if you cut him off at the knees. And this dude's like 390. Now, I think Texas wants to get him to 365, to be clear. 390 is too much, but he was an effective player at 390. So think about if they get him to 360, right? With Will Muschamp coming to Texas, they wanted to address the over-the-ball nose guard because they lost Cole Brevard, they lost Travis Shaw. They love Josiah Sharma. He's coming off the red shirt. So Will Muschamp's got a sneak peek at him at the 3 practices he watched, but that's all he's got and what's on tape from practice, which isn't going to be a lot for a guy that's redshirted. So I think Ian Giffard getting that frontline starter nose guard, run defender, over the ball player was a must in the portal and was underrated. And then you get Zion Williams, who's coming off a redshirt year at LSU. He picked LSU over Texas and Texas A&M out of high school. He had the redshirt year. He's up to about 350 and right now 6'4.5". A lot of upside ability. If he loves the game, he'll turn into a really good football player. I think that's always been the thing with him how much does he really love football? We're about to find out. But Texas got 2 nose guards, over the ball players to go with Josiah Sharma, who Kenny Baker and the staff really like. So I think they checked that box. Did they get their guys over the ball? I think they checked that box. With Ian Giffard as a starter. Zion Williams is a guy who can come in and develop along with Josiah Sharma, who was already on campus.
So 1 of 1 so far on defense. Defensive end, they did not hit. They went after some big game, though. Jaden Woods out of Florida, one of the bright young pass rushers in college football. He decided to stay at Florida. Prince Will Umamalian transferred from Ole Miss to LSU. Of course, LSU had to pay a buyout in order to get him. And then Damon Wilson out of Missouri ends up at Miami. Those were the 3 guys. They were big game hunting at edge because that's what they need to actually improve the game, because improve the room, because they're already really good. So they did not do that. So that's a 0 for 1 type scenario there. At linebacker, Rod, though, they needed playmakers and they needed depth. With Anthony Hill going pro, with Leonga Lafau becoming or leaving early, or leaving to go to Colorado, and with Bo Barnes kind of taking him out of the situation and moving on after just a freshman year, Texas needed both playmaker and depth. How do you feel like the Longhorns did?
I think in terms of playmaker, I mean, they might have gotten the best playmaking linebacker returning into college football in Rasheem Biles. I mean, he is fantastic. If you guys just go watch the film, I mean, he jumps out as a playmaking, havoc-wreaking linebacker. So I think Texas really hit it out. That's a grand slam home run. I mean, he was led college football in tackles for loss. He was second in the Power 4 in tackles per game. Just great in pass coverage. Returned 2 interceptions for touchdowns. Go watch that game. He had the bowl game versus Eastern Carolina, I believe. I mean, he's all over the place. He had a fumble return for a touchdown in that game. Had over 15 tackles. Had, I think 4 tackles for loss. It was an absolute beast. The fact that he played in that game. Usually guys don't play in meaningless bowl games anymore, guys. He played in that game because that guy loved the ball. So I like that. And Cryer as well. I think it's a good piece to have a bigger linebacker. Probably one only knocks against Rasheem Biles is that some people say he's kind of undersized. So Cryer brings a little bit more size to that. And Boswell, I think, is a nice depth piece for you too. That is a guy that maybe able to play special teams, but I think it's a nice depth piece at linebacker. You needed bodies at one point because you lost so much, as you mentioned, Bobby. But in terms of your frontline guys, having Rasheem Biles and now Ty Anthony Smith, that's kind of your 2 featured pieces to build around. That's, I think, a hell of a place to start. I think you might have one of the best linebacking cores in the country, just kind of starting right now on paper.
All right, Rod, I want to stay to you. I think they answered both playmaker and depth. Yeah. I will stay with you, defensive backfield. We knew they needed someone that was versatile, that could play multiple spots, and that someone that was talented and able to start right away. Mm-hmm. They went out and got Bo Masco out of Rutgers, who played for Mark Orfeh, or actually was recruited to Rutgers by Mark Orfeh. What do you think of that pickup, and did he address both of those needs? Is he an immediate starter at either nickel or corner, in your opinion?
He has played. I mean, he was obviously a big-time starter for Rutgers, arguably the best player in that secondary last season. They play a lot of man coverage, as much man coverage as any team in the country. They play a lot of press man coverage, too. His best game, actually, was probably up against Ohio State. When he played Ohio State. So he's a big game player, big time player. And I think ultimately he can and will start at Texas. Now, he did play some nickel, but mostly his starts were at corner there at Rutgers. But he's a physical player, really good open field tackler. So if you're going to switch him inside, I mean, that obviously is something that you need to highlight and prioritize. But I think he can end up starting that corner for you too. So I do think you got that. I think ultimately in the secondary, you also probably needed another piece. Maybe like a safety or something like that, another piece. But ultimately, you have what you need now, especially with some of the pieces you brought back in the portal, that guys who may have had intentions to go to the portal or were thinking about it. So I think ultimately, Bo Masco is going to be one of your starting 5, your best 5 when you look out there next season.
So they got what they really went after from a corner / versatile guy. Safety was not a must-have, given that they actually recruited back Derek Williams.
Yep.
Too. We got to count that in there. All right, the specialists, Jerry, they needed all of them, but particularly 2, kicker and punter. Now, the punter, we think, will have a go of it against an incoming young man named Mikey Bukakis. What are your thoughts on the 2 specialists, and did Texas answer the bell there?
Yeah, I think Spedick has got a big leg, right? I mean, look, Mason Shipley did a tremendous job out of the portal for Texas. He was a consistent kicker I think with Spedic is a little different. He is not that he's not a quality kicker, but he's got a big leg. I mean, you can run him out from 57, 58 yards and feel like he has a chance to make it. That's a different type of leg. Also, that could show on kickoffs. Texas used 3 different players on kickoffs last year after Will Stone announced he was going to enter the portal. So I think he's got that big leg. He's got some size at kicker, that strength and that leg power that he's got. So I think that was a quality pickup for Texas. And now he has a lot of experience stepping up to major college football. That's the one thing. He has experience in the MAC, and then he had experience at Memphis last year. So he brings a lot of experience kicking the football, and then he has that big leg on top of it. The punter, really good athlete. He had a good year. He didn't punt it much at FSU. He had a good year when he did. But to your point, Bobby, I think that's going to be a competition with Bukowskis. You're not going to recruit a punter that's ranked 1 or 2 in America like Bukowskis was and not give him a chance to compete. But if Bukowskis isn't ready to be that complete player at punter, directional punting, kind of telling, hey, Jeff Banks, I can put the ball here on command. If he's not ready to do that, you have some experience there in the FSU transfer that's been practicing and pulled that off at the college level.
Also got a long snapper as well. Look, I think that what I'm getting at here and what I wanted to circle back to is think of the job that the personnel staff did and kind of grade it. And rather than do individual grades on each position and all this other stuff, look at the whole. You had 15 things you really wanted to accomplish in the portal. Some of them very nuanced, like an inline blocker at tight end, right? You wanted somebody that could play more man in Bo Masco or what, you know what I mean? Very nuanced things. I think of the 15 things that I identified, they either matched or exceeded on 13 of them. I mean, to get Melvin Ciani out of the portal that allows you to push Brandon Baker guard, to get a Lawrence Seymour late like they did at guard, to get the two running backs that have that kind of firepower. I mean, all ACC and all Big 12 guys. 13 of 15 hitting on those things, and then the way you hit on them, they weren't just good. A couple of them were borderline great. Rod, you had some really nice things to say about Rasheem Biles. We know about Cam Coleman. Overall, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, well, let's give them an A. But, I mean, that's kind of what they deserve, in my opinion. Rod, what do you think?
I think I would prioritize, obviously, some of those needs that you were talking about. Yeah. And for instance, like I would put the power back that they didn't get. That would probably be higher up on my list of priorities. The edge rusher that they were looking at big game hunting and didn't get, that'd probably be a little bit lower down, because I think you do have assets at the edge right now at Texas. The power back thing, that's something that's troubled Texas for a while, right? Because guys, you had injuries, Cedric Baxter, Jared Gibson thing didn't really work out. So you've had issues with that ongoing. So I know that was higher up on the list. So that's how I would end up grading it. And ultimately, and obviously the O-line was the biggest, I think, concern for everybody, how you were going to attack the O-line. And lately with the Lawrence Seymour addition, it looks like Texas did get depth, and they do have some frontline talent at the O-line. So right now, with the collection of talent you have now assembled on offense, and it's one of the best we've seen in recent Texas football history, like high-level talent. You're going to have potentially 3 first-round picks just on this offense in that upcoming draft in 2027. I would say right now I am looking at an A- to a B+. I'm looking at a B, right. You might have an 89. You might, extra credit or something. Who knows? But if you're looking real, because I think about the collection of talent on offense, guys. How can I not give that an A? The power back thing, it brings me down. And yes, I would have liked to have gotten maybe more proven starters on the offensive line. Like, hey, just get 3 or 4 starters. But they got depth and they addressed it. The fact they're going to bump Baker down inside does make him more athletic. So like I said, I would give him an 80, 89.
I'm right there. I'm right there with Rod. I was going to call it a B++. That's what I was
I
going
wanted
B
to give them an
plus
A because that collection of talent on offense, guys. Come on, when was the last time we seen this much talent on offense? On one Texas offense, maturing all at the same time. And I said a lot of it's homegrown, but the Cam Coleman thing to win that is big. I mean, that's like I said, that pushed you over the top. You might have been, that to me pushed you up a whole letter grade. The Cam Coleman thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, because one guy can, change the game of how people guard you.
You don't get the light box. You don't get a light box most of the time now. If they don't give you a light box, thank you. Because I'm just going to go one-on-ones to Cam Coleman or Ryan Wingo. But you're going to have to give me a light box to run. That's not as concerned about the power element being lacking the power element in the run game because he knows they're going to have to give me a light box with this young man.
Yeah. What you said B plus, Jerry? You love this plus.
Yeah, I love it.
What's going on?
But I want to say this. That's really good because in the transfer portal, if I look around, and look, we don't look through 136 teams that they fill every need. There's only one like A out there because it's so hard because of how many players you sign. LSU signed 40 guys. So that's what you're compared against. They had to rebuild a whole roster, right? But I think filling needs, I think Texas did a really good job. And so I think B plus there. And to Rod's point, I mean, I have the edge rusher a little higher because I do think if Will Muschamp wants to be versatile, having somebody opposite Colin Simmons that's an overhang linebacker guy, I mean, it's going to have to probably be Brad Spence. I'm not ideally sure that's what they want it to be, but that's what it's going to have to be. I do think in the SEC with the quarterbacks and offensive teams and coaches they're going to play this year, I think that ability to rush the passer is going to be so important. I go B plus. I think they did a damn good job. This is considering this is the first year of really a 2-week portal window in those spring portal. So everybody was learning on the go this year. You can prepare all you want, but there's still unknowns that you had.
I think the other thing that was hidden that we didn't even talk about, they kept some guys from going in the portal too.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean that were all but out the door. And so I think that all of that combined, to your point, Jerry, it leads into how many guys in the portal do you need if you are able to keep some of the guys that you want to keep, right? And we mentioned a couple here that they lost, but look, I'm a little different than you guys. I just think knowing how hard it is to get everything you want, that's pretty strong, especially the firepower on offense, the play at linebacker, at defense, and I do think Bo Masco is going to be a starter.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of On Texas Football. Thanks again to our sponsor, Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam and his firm for a free, no strings attached consultation to see if you're due compensation. Again, LowyLawFirm.com, 20-plus years experience. Rod Babers, Jerry Hamilton, we may disagree on the grades, but I think that there's smiles on the faces because overall, whatever you grade it, did Texas improve itself in the portal? And the answer is yes, in my opinion. They improved their roster at key spots. All right, that'll do it. You guys have a good day. We'll be back with more here at On Texas Football. Hook 'em Horns.
Hook 'em.